3. I will do it one more time. Ask presenter. Juan Carlos, are you able to see that? It says test 3.
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. So as questions come in, if I identify a break in, whatever you guys are saying, I will pose the question to you. Do you have you discussed a dedicated amount of time for Q&A?
No.
Well, there looks like we take a 10-minute break at 15 after the hour, and then it looks like then there's a whole nother, almost 45 minutes, 50 minutes for Q&A, starting at 25 after the hour.
Is the one that you mean? Or you mean another one, Sarah?
So it looks like there is a Q&A session that follows this. Scott is correct. Thank you, Liz. Liz is in the mod chat. She's hanging out. So for the majority of this session, or actually, I should rephrase, for the entire session, I will be sort of backstage, just handling things, and you guys are the stars of the show. Send me any questions in the mod chat, and we are live. I'm heading out.
Okay, I think we're ready to begin our next session. And so hi, everybody. Welcome to CareerCon. And it's a pleasure to be with you all here today. And wanted to thank our friends at SACNAS for inviting me to moderate the session this afternoon, looking at strengths and belonging. And my name is Scott May. I'm the Executive Director of the International Center for Professional Development. And I know that President Padilla of SACNAS had introduced my organization at the opening of the program earlier today, and wanted to thank her for that. And just say how very pleased we are to be supporting and a part of CareerCon today and over the next couple of days. And I know she did mention our Scientist Mentoring and Diversity program. It is a very excellent opportunity for all of you all to continue, and it's a very complimentary activity to what you're doing for these few days with CareerCon. Our application deadline to get full paid fellowships for the Scientist Mentoring and Diversity program is April 1st, and so I'd encourage you all to go to our website and check that out. With that said, let me introduce our panelists, and I see we've got several of them are here right now, and we'll jump right in, and I'll let them also, as part of the first question, tell you a little bit more about themselves. But it's my pleasure to introduce to you all Lindsay Silva, who's Director of Microbiology at Genentech, and Nuemi Romero, and she is Vice President of Operations, Digital Strategy and Capabilities at Amgen, and Juan Carlos Ramos, who's R&D Engineering Manager at HP. And I don't know if Itzia Arroyo is here just yet, but she's Associate Director, Quality Control at Merck. And Lisa Tucio King is Senior Vice President of Technology Business Services Executive at Wells Fargo. So I'm going to let Lindsay kick things off. And Lindsay, you could fill in a little bit about your background and what got you to Genentech. But I'd like to also pose to our panelists our first question for them to address, and that is, how does their sense, our panelists' sense of self, and specifically their sense of their strengths and values, show up in their work life? And so, Lindsay, let me go ahead and hand that over to you, please.
Well, hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I actually went to my first SACNAS conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico, when I was an undergrad at UC Irvine. So that really sparked my love of science. And that's where I really felt like I could be a scientist because I saw myself represented in the people that were not only attending the conference, but also in the professors and all of the presentations that were given. So I went to UC Irvine, graduated with a bachelor's of biology in 2004. And with the encouragement of support of my undergraduate advisor, I directly applied to graduate school. And I attended Harvard Medical School, where I received a PhD in microbiology and molecular genetics in 2010. So I think at the time, it was the idea that if you really wanted to be a serious scientist, you go the academic route, you do your academic postdoc, and then you try to look for professorship positions. And it was almost seen that if you went into biotech or pharma, that you weren't really doing science. And now I think the landscape has changed so much in the past 10 to 15 years. So for me personally, I loved virology and I also love California. And as soon as I could, I went back to California. I did a postdoc at USC Keck School of Medicine. And at the time, that's where I just assumed that, of course, academic postdoc is relevant experience. And I was very shocked when I did go on the job market and realized I didn't want to be a professor. I'm still trying to figure out what can I do with my training because on paper I looked like very much just suited for academic environment. So that's where I did a lot of networking. I tried to talk to as many people as possible, and I was very lucky to get my foot in the door by working at a plasma company. So my first non-academic job was with Grifols. They are a plasma manufacturing company that is headquartered in Barcelona and had a location in Los Angeles. So this is where I first started to feel somewhat of a sense of belonging because I would say that what helped me get this position is that I happen to read and write Spanish. I would say my speaking gets better after having a little bit of vino, but that's what really set me apart was being able to communicate in Spanish and also the workplace really reflected the community. It was based in East LA. I saw the coworkers that came from the community, and that's because the CEO of that site was from East LA. So it was very intentional in thinking about how do we recruit and develop this next generation of talent. So after being in this position as a scientist in R&D for a couple of years, I really learned how do I support the viral safety of large molecule biologics. It's not something that I really learned in the classroom, and it was really something I gained from on-the-job training. So I decided that to take it to the next step, I need to learn more about recombinant proteins when we think about biologics. Plasma and plasma-derived medicines is just one component of when we think about biologic medicines. So I was fortunate and competitive enough that I applied to a position at Genentech as a technical development scientist. And this is where I got to really hone in on strategy for viral safety for recombinant proteins that are made in an animal cell called CHO. And with that, I learned a lot about what it is for new technology and the need to get our medicines to patients faster. So with this, it was really a need for, I want a seat at the table. How do I get there? How do I make this happen? And I was fortunate to do that within my current company and took a position in pharma technical quality where I started out as a senior manager and supporting a team for innovation in what we consider traditional compendial test methods that are needed to make sure the quality of the products are suitable for our patients. And then I was recently promoted to director last year. And I think along this journey and sense of belonging is that you don't realize how much representation matters until you see it. And was really the takeaway for me was being able to mentor young Latina interns. We all were in a virtual room together and just saying how it was very rare to see themselves in leadership positions. And so that's why I'm very intentional in thinking about how I use my time to really help develop talent, get them in the door early, and how can I give back to my community so that when they are in the biotech space, they do feel that they can bring their whole selves to work. So I'll also put in the chat, but feel free to connect with via LinkedIn if you want to learn more about what it's like to work in biotech.
Awesome. I think
Sorry about that. I was muted myself and I'm talking about. But Lindsay, thank you. That was a wonderful thing for both addressing the topic and your sense of self and weaving it nicely into your journey. And so thank you for doing that. And Noemi, sorry for butting right in on you.
okay. All right. I'm having trouble hearing you, Scott, but hopefully everybody can hear me. If you can give me a thumbs up, the other panelists. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So my name is Nuemi Romero. I represent Amgen here today, and been in the biotech industry for over 20 years. And I do have a little bit of a different profile than Lindsay, so that's good. We're adding some diversity here. I am a business slash operations type of professional. I went to the University of Notre Dame and I studied accounting and finance, and then went to Abilene Christian University where I did my MBA with a focus in international business. And love the biotech journey primarily because I think I have always loved science, always loved math. And when you think about strengths and some of the things that really allow me to be here today, I lead a team of operations strategy. So I'm leading a lot with everything related to digital data and analytics and some of the newer technologies that you will find really in computational science, computer science, and data sciences type of majors. And I think, based on my history, I really enjoyed the entrepreneurship of science. And I think that's what led me to where I am today. But I've had several jobs in industry, worked for a couple of pharmaceuticals before Amgen, and really focus on understanding the different dimensions of our pharmaceutical world, right? So a lot of experiences in the P&L, right? Understanding what generates a revenue, what generates an expense, experience in a site versus headquarters, and also in a sales and commercial type of organization, and also experience in the international arena. And I think that's one area that I love. Would love to answer questions about because I did kick off for Amgen an international expansion that started about 10 years ago. And it's really one of the jobs that I have enjoyed the most. I do share something very much with Lindsay, and that is the mentorship program. I actually founded what we called a women's empowerment type of forum in Puerto Rico while I was there. And here in Thousand Oaks, California, which is where Amgen is headquartered, I lead an employee resource group that is called ABLE, and it stands for Ability Better Through Leadership and Education. And it focuses on diversity related to physical adversities or neurodiversity. So very exciting when you think about the type of role that I'm in today that has to do with computational biology and data scientists, all the different spectrums of the way that we think, the intelligence that we apply to solve problems. So Amgen is very focused on leading this type of talent development as well. So very excited to be here, and hopefully we can chat about one or two of these topics that I've introduced you with.
Thank you very much, Noemi. And hope my video and audio is a little better now.
It is.
Good. Okay. Well, and so Juan Carlos, welcome, and please, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. On the topic of diversity, as Noemi mentioned, I have a very different background than Lindsay and Noemi. To start, I was born, raised, and educated in Mexico. So I moved to the US after completing my master's degree in 3 different countries. My master was between Mexico, Italy, and the US. That's when I decided, like, I would like to move to the US. So I moved to Dallas, Texas, where I got a PhD in material science, so more on the semiconductor field. And my goal was to be a professor because that was what I saw. So again, representation matters. I didn't know anything else. Not like we have a very developed knowledge industry in Mexico yet. But I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the support. I didn't know anything about SACNAS until I got a job as a postdoc at Oregon State, in which I was sponsored by NSF. And this fellowship asked to my bosses that I have to spend 40 to 50% of the time in professional development. And then I looking for options. I found SACNAS. Like, man, I wish I had found that before when I was a PhD. And it helped me a lot. I went through the Leadership Institute, became very involved at SACNAS. That was a way I grew my network in the US. And also, besides that, I took a business training. It's called Lens of the Market. And that training in business made me realize that I didn't want to be a professor anymore. As when I started my PhD, I wanted to go into the startup world. So we co-founded a startup that existed for only around 6 months. We weren't ready for that, but I got hooked into the startup world. So I moved to California, Santa Barbara, to work in a very early stage startup. And we stayed there for around 2 years. When I wanted something different, I found that I didn't have the mentorship I needed. I didn't have the resources I needed to launch and propel my career. So I made a move. I got an invitation to join HP as engineer, materials engineer. And I joined HP. It did not disappoint. I got the resources I needed. I got the mentorship I needed, the training, and it was pretty good. But it's a large corporation, and I was used to the speed of a startup. So I get bored very quickly, and they noticed that. And that's the advantage of joining a large corporation. So they noticed that I was good at doing what I did, but also I was bored. So they moved me to the 3D organization, a totally different business unit, as it's called systems engineer. But then again, because of my training in a startup and they call it a customer focus, they put me to work exactly with customers or better customers. So I got to develop different set of skills, expanded that network internally and externally. And a year later, they asked me to be promoted to manager. So right now, I am a people manager and product manager. I manage a team of 16 engineers and scientists in HP, and I work closely with our partners in Asia and Barcelona. As for addressing the question on this sense of strengths and values, how they show up at work, has been a journey, especially for me, as I've been moving so much that I feel I haven't caught up yet my mind to where I am. Like I transition so fast from one position to another and kind of growing in the company as well, that I ask myself very often, how do I bring myself to work? How do I show up, show the real Juan Carlos, and how that will impact me? At the beginning, I didn't trust myself that much. I still don't do it, but it's getting better. But the point is, especially when it's not about me, but I am managing other people, and I realize the impact I have on other people's lives, promotions, salaries, lateral moves, international traveling, you name it, is when I realized that I could not be someone else, and that it will take a lot of energy trying to be someone else. So I better play to my strengths. I've been always a very extrovert person, which wasn't seen as the best thing when I was in grad school. Like, Juan Carlos is too talkative or too outgoing to be a scientist. And I tried to hide that for years. Later on, it's like, I can't. So I better be myself. And I've been playing lately to my strengths, and the results have been good. So that's my recommendation. Just look at your strengths, don't hide them, play with them.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos. And let's see, Lisa, could you tell the group a little bit more about yourself, and then also address our our kickoff question about your sense of strengths and values.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott. My name is Lisa Tuccio King, and I am a Technology Business Services Director at Wells Fargo. So I am in the financial services segment here and have, going back to the theme of diversity, have a little bit of a different career path. So I am the first person in my family to go to college. And so if you can put yourself in a similar situation, there were not a lot of people that I could turn to at that moment in time to figure out, what do I want to major? What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? Or what do I want to be from a professional perspective? And so I really kind of trusted friends that became family and other family members. My father, I talk a lot about the influence he had on who I am and how I've grown throughout the years. And so at the conclusion of my 4 years at the University of Southern California, I had an opportunity, and I was very fortunate to interview with a couple of companies. And I was surprised to learn the opportunities that existed in a very large financial services company. But nonetheless, I graduated and made the leap and did decide to join Wells Fargo in the fall of 2001. So it's been a little over 20 years that I've been with Wells Fargo and have had a very fortunate set of opportunities to move between groups and divisions, which have always kind of been anchored within the technology segment. For me, being within Southern California and in that area, a lot of people did look like me, but when I stepped foot in my professional work environment, all of a sudden they didn't. I was a very male-dominated environment, one that wasn't heavily dominated by Hispanics either, and continues to be something that the company is working towards to further those opportunities and really transform the landscape to look more like the communities that we service from a products and service perspective for our financial products. And so I had an opportunity to jump in at that point into a leadership development program where I kind of affectionately call myself, the weekend surprise. I would show up and join different groups and different teams and spend sometimes 1 to 3 months with them. And that was difficult. I was always the new person on the team. They always wondered, where did I come from? What were the experiences and the skill sets that I brought? But nonetheless, I think that taught me a lot of the perseverance that in the professional setting, it's the diversity of thought, the diversity of my background and my experiences that made me a valuable asset to the group or the team that I was working with. And so, like Juan Carlos, I've had the opportunity to find myself bored in some situations and given opportunities to jump into new groups and new teams and new challenges. In some of those situations, I was tapped on the shoulder. And in other situations, I raised my hand and said, what more can I take on? I talk a lot to individuals in my group that I mentor, and I try to support and sponsor to help them as they try to navigate through their career paths about really bringing your whole self to work, being comfortable in that authenticity about who you are, again, what your experiences are, where your challenges are, and where you excel. And I really strongly believe in the sum of all of our pieces and parts. And so no two people or one group needs two of the same individuals. And so really trying to capitalize on my previous experiences, again, not being afraid to speak up and speak out has been something that I have I would say courageously continued to foster. In the early period of my career, I may have held back a little, may have been a little bit more apprehensive to share for fear that I would say the wrong thing. And then I think as I've matured and I've grown, I've realized there are great opportunities for you to be vocal, for you to share your perspectives, to share your ideas. And the other thing that I think has also made me incredibly confident as I bring in my whole self to work is finding those people that'll surround you to help push you up, the people that you can ask the questions of, to follow up with what was the intended outcome. I didn't understand a comment or a question that was asked, and as I've navigated through both my personal and professional lives, I've continued to rely on those individuals to help ensure that I truly am bringing my whole self to work and that the value add that I bring can be capitalized on a company like Wells Fargo that offers a wide and very vast array of technology jobs that I've been fortunate, again, to be a part of for the past 20 years. So, Scott, with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And then, folks, just a couple of quick house, and thank you, panelists. A couple of quick announcements. And so, one of our panelists, Itzia Arroyo with Merck, has had a conflict come up in her schedule. She's trying to join us. When she comes along, we will introduce her if she's able to be with us. And then the other point I wanted to make is, I think you all know this, feel free to put any questions that you've got and would like to pose of our panelists. We've got about 20 minutes more that we'll spend in sort of this moderated format, and then we're going to take about a 10-minute break. And then we'll come back and we've got 45 minutes to address all of your questions. But Cindy Cohen, thank you for posting that wonderful question. We will get to it. Others, if things come to mind, feel free to go ahead and post them up there. But let me jump back to another question I'd like to pose of our panelists, and we'll go back to Lindsay. And I'd like you to address Lindsay and the other panelists, please. When and how did you start to find confidence in your professional skill set as you embarked on your careers?
So I think that's a great question because how do you define confidence? For me, as a scientist, I think the more you have that depth of knowledge, the more confident you do feel in your capabilities. But it also depends on the situation. So this was the case where for a very long time, I was growing into a very deep technical subject matter expert type role. And that's where I was able to build my confidence because I had so many years of virology training. So I would say that I started to feel more confident in my capabilities when I was at Genentech and started to go from contributing to the success of projects to leading projects that I knew I had technical mastery in. But I know that there's many different ways to build up confidence and leadership. And I knew that as much as I loved the virology, I had basically reached a point where I think I was not able to grow as much as I would have liked. So I did take a leap of faith and go into a role where um, the position needed both leadership and technical skills. So I did not feel very confident when I initially took the position because I was worried about whether I knew enough of the microbiology required for this role. But then I think what helped boost up the confidence is that it's not just the technical that helps you in delivering successes. It's those soft skills as well. It's how you work with people, how you influence, how you see the bigger picture, how you go about coalition building and understanding who are maybe people that are more challenging where you want to take projects versus people who see a problem and want to work with you. So, where I got the biggest confidence in my capabilities as a leader was when I knew the least technical knowledge. And that's where I recognized that there was a problem and we needed to work together and have different diversity of thought represented, not just microbiology SMEs. We needed to get quality involved, development, understanding the root cause of the problem. And with that, the outcome of the project is that we were very successful in rethinking how we were doing a current state on how we assess for endotoxin related challenges for our commercial portfolio as well as our clinical development portfolio. And once you do have those great wins and knowing that the leap of faith you took to make it happen, that's where it builds up the confidence because you can see how you can take a challenge, drive it to completion. And then when other people acknowledge that you did a job well done solving the problem, that continues to build step by step.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Lindsay. And Noemi, pitch it over to you about how, when and how did you start to find your confidence in your professional skill set?
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott. I did probably my third, fourth year in career. It wasn't something that came straight up right away. And I do have to say that I owe it to a very good mentor. And I would say this person was a mentor and a sponsor, right? It really became both. That one day, reached out to me and said, hey, I need somebody with a very pragmatic transformation type of mentality. You can bring it to the table. He offered me a job that I knew nothing about. So I can very much relate to Lindsay when she speaks about capabilities versus technical knowledge. And granted, it really depends how do you want to grow professionally. There are certain roles that are very technical in nature. But if you do want to grow managerially, I really think capabilities become the number one asset you can possibly develop. And this individual was fantastic. I remember this was a telecom company, and I was taking a director role in sales support, which I really knew nothing about. And I remember telling him, like, you're nuts. I mean, I know nothing about this role. Why do you want me to take it? And he said, in fact, the fact that you know nothing actually can bring a lot of positive change here. But I'm also looking forward to your style in A, B, C, D, right? And he mentioned a few things that I had never thought about, to be honest with you. And that's when I started gaining confidence and realized we all have a particular branding and we all bring something unique to the equation. And I think many times it's more important to find the right setting where your strengths play at a very high value to that particular team than it is to try to find or try to perfect your technical knowledge or even some of your managerial skills. So I do look forward right now when I build teams, for example, and I know there's some questions about how do you overcome industry experience and things like that. I can tell you when I build teams today, I look more for profile than I do for particular experience. And one of the individuals that I hired about, probably very early in my career when I became a manager, I asked him a technical question and he said he didn't know. And I said, well, how would you approach knowing about it? And he said, oh, I would Google it. And there's probably a YouTube video on it. And I laughed and I said, okay, well, let's assume there's not a YouTube video. And he said, well, my networking is very rich. These are the different associations I'm part of. These are the schools that I went to. And, my neighbor is such and such, and he knows stuff, and the other neighbor, and some of the topics had nothing to do with what I was hiring him about. But I hired him because I loved the enthusiasm. I loved the proactiveness and the entrepreneurship in wanting to find new ways and learning. So that would be my advice. I was lucky enough that I had a great mentor that pointed me to it. But certainly in the journey, I discovered we all bring something unique. And whatever we bring that is unique, let's make sure that we sell it and we make it part of our confidence and the branding that we have as professionals.
Cool. Thank you so much, Noemi.
Yep.
And Juan Carlos, please.
That's a really tough question because I am not really confident about my skill set yet. I think it's work in progress. And a proof of that is this. I have this one next to me. They are changing month to month, especially because I am not confident. I am here. I'm doing my best. I'm growing, and I prepare myself whatever I have to do. But as Noemi mentioned, I kind of discovered this a few weeks ago. I've been a manager only for barely more than 1 year, and I was promoted about 3 years after starting in HP, which is quite fast. It normally takes 7 to 9 years in a company like this to be promoted to manager. So I did it fast. And a few weeks ago, I was tapped on the shoulder to apply for a position as section manager, which means managing managers. And I didn't get it, and I knew I would not get it. That's fine. But I asked them in the feedback, I asked to the panel of directors, like, okay, I need to get your feedback. You were the one who asked me to interview. So there must be something, I don't know what, that I am doing right. Tell me about it. So I say, I have 3 questions for you. Tell me, why do you ask me what I'm doing right so I can continue doing that? What are the gaps that you detected when I interview? And give me suggestions about how to cover that gap. And that is actually kind of building confidence on my skill set, because they told me things I didn't know about myself. But like, oh, so this is what I'm doing right. This is what I'm looking for. Okay, let's play on that. Let's play on the strengths. And um, at the same time, I discovered what Noemi mentioned is like, I am building a brand for myself inside of the company, and addressing also another thing that I told them is, I don't know those things. I'm not confident enough yet. However, when you hire me, you don't hire only one person. You're going to hire basically my board of directors, which is mentors, sponsors, coaches, and friends, and so on. And I think that was a good selling point.
Thank you so much, Juan Carlos. And Lisa, please.
Yeah, so I think the other panelists, I think, have covered a lot of the things that I would share, but Naomi hit on something that's very similar. I would say my confidence came probably a couple of years into my role. So like I mentioned, I'm with Wells Fargo, and I'm particularly in the technology infrastructure organization. And for those of you who are watching, seeing, listening, learning to technology, it is changing every hour, every day, and you constantly feel like you're playing catch up. So, like Juan Carlos, I am looking and reading books. I am watching YouTubes. I am Googling things to find out, what other competitors are doing in the financial services area, as well as other technology driven companies. And so there is a level of uncertainty, I think, that you're trying to catch up. And especially in the infrastructure space, it can be such a wide and vast array of domains that it can be difficult to feel that you're confident and have that depth of technology experience in one segment or another. But for me, when I look at confidence, I think it's similar to what Naomi said, is there are so many facets to it. It's trusting your judgment. It's trusting your capabilities. It's trusting your abilities. It's trusting that network. And when I realized that I didn't have to have the answer to every question, that I didn't have to have the solution to every problem, but it was more so in how was I going to approach it? Where was that tenacious person who I knew was the same person in grade school and in college and in personal settings, would kind of tackle those difficult problems. But I think I really stepped into that level of confidence. And again, what I was bringing to the table, I talked earlier about the diversity of thought. And I really do, I think when I found that pivot point where I could add in my perspective, I could bring my experiences to the table, that's when I really started to kind of harvest that level of confidence that I think played out in the way in which I was able to influence decisions that we were making at a company that's as big and as complex as Wells Fargo. And that was really kind of a turning point. And then the last thing I would highlight is, again, going back to the idea of mentors and sponsors and others that you can phone a friend, knowing that all of us are trying to grow our experiences and our knowledge bases rather, in different areas, and not being afraid to rely on those individuals to help you make some of those decisions. And I think one of the biggest pivot points in my career is when somebody asked me a really tough question and I was able to respond back, I don't know, but let me find out. And not looking at that as a negative or something that I should have a less confidence in myself, but more so the acknowledgement of I might not know it and I'm going to figure out how to solve it. I know some people have talked a lot in the chat about imposter syndrome and kind of showing up and being able to demonstrate who you are and what you bring. And oftentimes what you bring can still be a work in progress.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa. And Lisa, why don't we just mix things up a little bit and let you go first on this next question. And so I'd like to pose to our panelists this question, and that is, what on the job or professional experiences were pivotal in helping you better understand your professional identity and industry? So again, Lisa, please.
It's a great question. So I talked about, as I was coming out of college, I joined a management rotation program. It was a 12-month program in the technology organization to try to find college graduates who could join the firm for hopefully what would be, a long trajectory, and had the skill sets to move into managerial roles or technical specialties. And in that role, I had a chance to really be frontline with our customers and to traverse a multitude of different areas from our branches where I was the weeks leading up to September 11th to our call centers, where we were trying to answer and resolve problems from customers that had just a wide variety of issues, because most people don't call a call center saying things are going well. They call because things aren't going well. And so very quickly in those early years, I was able to understand what our customers were looking for. And I've never forgotten those moments, being a part of technology infrastructure or the heartbeat of the company. If the technology infrastructure isn't working, Wells Fargo is not providing, services to our customers. And so I learned and had an opportunity to understand what it takes for the company to operate and to deliver those solutions. And as I stepped into those various rotations, I didn't know anything. I had to learn. I thought, give me the books, give me the YouTube trainings, give me whatever you have that would help me to get acclimated so I could feel like I had 5, 10, even 15 years under my belt. I found the person in the room who would sit with me after work and explain to me topics and areas of focus that I just didn't understand. And so I think those were the early years. Again, working for a financial services company as large as Wells, it's very difficult to navigate. It can be rich in business lines and so forth. It can add to that complexity. But when you kind of take things and are able to break them apart into bite-sized pieces, that's where I've been able to apply that approach throughout the last 20 years of my time with Wells Fargo. And those experiences, I can take myself right back to those call centers from almost 20 years ago and take the approach that I took in that setting and apply it to some of our biggest problems that we're currently facing in the infrastructure space, taking ourselves to cloud, and a whole host of other technology challenges that we are driving forward from a transformation perspective.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And let's see, Juan Carlos, we've got about 4 minutes left. And so would you be able to take a few minutes and address our question about on the job professional experiences and how they helped you better understand your professional identity and industry? And then after the break, we will give Lindsay and Noemi a chance to also respond to that before we can get to, and gosh, the questions that our CareerCon attendees are putting up are just so fabulous. So I can't wait to hear our panelists address those too. But please, Juan Carlos, why don't you bring it home for us before the break?
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. I think there are three main ones. One, when I was in the startup in California, we lost our main customer and all the funding suddenly. So we had to do something. And everyone was freaked out, from the CEO to everyone. So I had an idea. Let's pivot. Let's pivot, and we have nothing to lose. So we went on and tried to find funding, and it was super exciting. Yes, I was scared, but I was also excited. So something there sparked like, oh, I can do this, and actually I enjoy the adrenaline. So check for my identity developing. Then similarly to Lisa, in HP, when I was exposed to our beta customers, someone asked you for a hammer when what they really need was to hang a frame. So how do you ask those questions about what someone really, really, really needs? And how do you develop that process? They taught me a lot about how to ask questions, but also what are people really looking for? And I translate that to many other things in my career. And the final experience that changed me was becoming a people manager, because I feel responsible and to a certain degree accountable of the people, the future of the people I manage. Are they staying in the company? Are they developing in the company? Are they feel comfortable? Are they bringing themselves to work? And are we providing the best to the customers, but also to the people I work with? It's a balance. So it's a combination of these three things.
Very much, Juan Carlos, and very perfectly timed as well. And attendees, I'd like to call your attention to, we put a polling question up if you all could, as we go to break, take a quick look at that and provide us some feedback about the session so far, as as I mentioned, more to come. But as far as this helped you feel more confident in understanding your strengths and weaknesses and bringing them forward in an industry workplace setting. And so I know that the poll question will be up for about the next minute and a half. And I know we're a few seconds early, but let's see, we will go ahead and go to break now, and then we'll be back in 10 minutes. And but just a quick virtual round of applause for our panelists for kicking things off with us. And we're all five looking forward to being back with you all shortly to address the wonderful questions you've already been posing. We'll be able to handle more questions on the system there after our break too. So we will see you all again shortly. Thank you so much for your attention.